Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Harold Bell, and I'd like to welcome you to our session this afternoon, Pivoting During the Pandemic, Taking Advantage of Career Opportunities in Times of Transition. We are so excited to have you today, and we want to thank you for joining us for what will sure to be a very engaging and informative session. We are very fortunate today to have a corporate sponsor for this session, known as DaVita. And we have an alumna and a current student who's going to give us some remarks on behalf of them. And so I'm going to defer to Rocky Jones, who is our alumna from DaVita. And so I'll turn it over to Rocky. Rocky.
Thank you, Harold. Happy Saturday, Spelman sisters. So happy and excited to be here, welcoming you all to this session. My name is Rocky Jones. I am Spelman class of 2009. I know that seems like forever ago. But hopefully I don't look it. I'm currently a group facility administrator at DaVita, and I absolutely love what I do. So I want to take some time to kind of introduce DaVita and let you know who we are as a company. So DaVita is a Fortune 200 company and is a leading global provider in kidney care. We do healthcare, but we don't just do healthcare. We're not just about healthcare. We care about the lives of our patients, our teammates, and partners, and the communities in which we operate around the globe. DaVita was founded on the principle of being a community first and a company second. We want all of our teammates to experience DaVita as a place where I belong. So I want to quote Kenny Gardner, our Chief People Officer. To be a special place, we need our village to be diverse and to have every teammate feel like they belong. When this is done right, it feels like family, and that's how I want all teammates to experience our village. As DaVita continues to lead through the COVID-19 pandemic, our village is strong and growing. We have been hiring throughout the pandemic with a goal of 20,000 new teammates. DaVita offers a variety of career paths, including clinical roles, nursing, social work, facility administrators, and corporate roles, including DaVita's leadership development program, internally called the Redwoods Program. The Redwoods Program is designed to expose you to the business and operational cornerstones that make DaVita the leading healthcare provider that it is today. You will receive intentional, upfront, and ongoing training consisting of both hard and soft skills. The goal is to support your development in becoming a strong DaVita teammate with leadership potential. We are actively recruiting for our summer internship and sophomore leadership summit experiences, and you can apply online on Handshake by April 5th. To learn more about early career experiences, I would like to introduce our current Spelman student, Lamaria Smith.
Thank you so much, Rocky. Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you said about DaVita being a community first. I participated in the sophomore leadership summit my sophomore year, and it was a really great experience. I got to go to DaVita's office and meet other students from across the country at very prestigious institutions. And we got to learn more about what makes us a leader, what makes us different, how our communication styles can be improved or adjusted depending on our team members. And then after doing those different activities, we were presented the opportunity to do a case competition. And for the case competition, we were presented a problem and we had to come up with a solution as a team. And then we got to present in front of some of DaVita's leadership amongst the company. And it's a really great experience because, you know, we learned about our leadership skills and then we were able to apply what we learned in that space. And we were also exposed to presenting and just, you know, learning more about being on a team. And so I really appreciated that experience. And after I completed it, I was really pumped and I really wanted to come to Spelman. And so I'm really happy to see my goal and my dream here today. And that will be all for me. Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Lamaria. Appreciate it. And so again, we want to thank Davita for coming out and sponsoring this particular event today. Again, we appreciate them for wanting to sponsor and to step out in these times of kind of a pandemic and still recognize that great talent continues to exist even in the midst of a pandemic, and that Spelman is one of the places that they want to make that investment. And so you see, we have again both an alumna and a current student that have been affiliated with them. And speaking of the various opportunities, so I hope you took note of those opportunities. And we thank you and look forward, Davita, to continue to working with you as we move forward. All righty. Well, let's continue on then. And what I want to do is, first of all, for those of you who have never met me, never seen me, whatever, at Spelman, I'm Harold Bell again. I'm the Director of Career Planning and Development. This is my 20th year at Spelman. And so it's hard to believe, but it's a wonderful place. And I tell you, I get so excited about Spelman. I get so excited about the students and the alumni that come through Spelman. Today, again, we want to talk about pivoting through the pandemic. We're going to have a panel. Before we get to the panel, though, some of you saw me last year at Family Weekend, and I want to talk a little bit about what's been going on from what I like to call from March to March. In other words, from March 2020 to March 2021, a lot has been going on, and obviously not everything. So what I want to talk about is actually what's been happening with recruiting during this time. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to share some slides that I have just to put some things into context for you around opportunities. And by the way, when we refer to career opportunities, we're talking about not only just jobs. I know sometimes that's the first thing that comes to people's minds. We're talking about jobs. We're talking about graduate school. We're talking about internships. We're talking about research. And so all of those things are part of a career. And so let's take a little dive here for just a second. We're going to see a few slides. And before I do that, I guess I've got to bring them up again. And then I have to go back and share my screen. So let's see if that works this time. Okay. Righty. Okay. My PowerPoint is acting up here. So let's see if we can get it going now. Let me stop the share for a second. I'm going to try it again. If not, I'll just have to give you the narrative here. I'm not sure why these slides are not shared. There we go. My slides are saying we're not used to you using us on a Saturday. All righty. So hopefully everyone sees this slide of 700, and what I want to, so let's talk a little bit again about the March to March. So obviously March last year, 2020, the pandemic hit, and everybody had to really start scrambling around and trying to figure out how are they going to adjust, obviously, to what was going on with the pandemic in terms of continuing to move forward in spite of the pandemic. And so we found people really having to make those adjustments. And for many of us, that was a virtual adjustment. And so you have that as a major shift that took place, obviously, during that period, the beginning in March, is that people had to begin shifting to that virtual format. Now, in the process of that happening, obviously, companies were in a scramble. Some students actually lost opportunities last year because they had to figure out what were we going to do with the current employees, and before we try to onboard new employees, or what are we going to do, in terms of graduate school. And so there was a little bit of a flux, right, trying to get things going. And so that was beginning in March. And then we had another significant event happen in June, and that was George Floyd. And I call both of these flashpoints. And the reason why I bring up the George Floyd issue is because what that essentially did is it put diversity front and center on a lot of people's minds. Particularly what it put it front and center on is corporations, grad schools, all sorts of institutions around the United States. What it did was that particular flashpoint began to get people looking at their particular environments that they operated in, whether that was higher education, whether that was corporate America. People began to look at and began to say, hey, well, maybe these environments aren't as diverse as they could be. African American representation is not as prevalent as it could be. And so that really began to make companies and graduate schools and various institutions begin to make their various shifts and say, we want to make this a priority. And so we get to September, and that's when the new semester for the fall is beginning. And something happened that even I wasn't anticipating. And that is we got this onslaught of attention coming from graduate schools and companies. Now, let me be very clear, and those of you who have heard me speak in the past have heard me say this. Spelman has always been a magnet for opportunity. We've always been a magnet and drawn in, grad schools and companies and nonprofits and so on and so forth. That's always been the case. But all of a sudden, there was a new level of engagement that was occurring with the campus, the likes of which I'd never seen before in my 20 years here at Spelman. And so one of the reasons why I had the 700 number up that you see on the screen is because that number represents the number of recruiters that we normally see. And when I say recruiters, I'm referring to graduate schools and employers. That's what we normally see in an academic year that comes to campus physically. We actually saw this number of recruiters come in one semester. So that was huge. And so, as you can well imagine, my department's been hopping and jumping the whole time. And it was contrary to what you might hear on the jobs report that comes out every Thursday, where we saw, obviously, the job market take a huge hit. And of course, African Americans took a huge hit, right, with the pandemic. But something very different was going on in higher education, particularly on the campuses of HBCUs, particularly on the campus of Spelman College. And we saw this influx. And one of the things we can certainly attribute that to was not only the priority placed on diversity, but we were now virtual. Everybody was virtual. And so that made us more accessible. And so everyone knows of the reputation of Spelman, and all of a sudden everyone I want a Spelman woman, even more so. So it even blew up even more. And I'm like, oh my God. And so that totally caught me off guard. You all, it was like a tsunami. I got wiped out. I mean, it was amazing. So my next slide, which is pretty interesting, is virtual events had to go, actually increased because normally you may have heard me talk about in the past, information sessions. And this is where graduate schools and corporations, they come on campus and they talk about their particular company or institution. Never saw this one coming. So remember now, everybody doesn't come to campus, but they can still advertise events to the campus. And so from March to December of 2020, we had over 1,900 advertised events to Spelman College. It's absolutely, I know the students didn't even know this, just crazy. I mean, that 1,900, it was absolutely amazing how we were being engaged. And so here again, you see, these are people looking for our students, even in the midst of the pandemic. And so just blew me away. And so again, as we talk about, part of the reason I'm sharing this with you, because I want you to know that while outside of Spelman in the traditional job market, it was a very different story. A very phenomenal story was going on with Spelman College in terms of this whole area of employment and hiring students to go to graduate school. Just amazing. And so one last thing I just want to share with you before we turn it over to our panel, in terms of, well, how do we get all this information out? Because that's also the important thing, because my team and I, we're the frontline people that get hit with the brunt of all of this. But of course, the true prize for these companies is actually the students. And so how do we get that information out? And I'm not going to go into a full dive of how we do all of that. But one thing I want everyone to know is that every week, one of the ways that we handle that volume is we have what's called a weekly calendar. And by the way, this goes to every student at Spelman's campus. And if you look at the first part of this calendar, it's talking about graduate school and employment opportunities. So it's covering those particular opportunities for that particular week that you see. So you see the week of March 22nd, okay? Every single thing that's happening on March 22nd is not in this calendar. What you would find is these are teasers, I like to call them. These are just the sort of initial images you see are teasers. But if you go to the bottom and click on any of those go buttons, it takes you to the full breadth of what's going on during a particular week. And you can even, when you get out there, you can even look further than a week to see what's going on. But this is one of the major ways I want you to know that we're communicating with students. Of course, many of you know about Handshake. Obviously, those go buttons, Handshake is our jobs and events portal. Those go buttons actually go to Handshake, where they get more detailed information about those events. So as we get ready to tee up this conversation with the panel, I wanted to just kind of give you that backdrop just to further reinforce what we're trying to say about the panel today. And that is, there are many, many opportunities going on right now. And so it's more opportunities than you can possibly consume. And so what we're going to do today is we have 6 of our current students that are with us today. And what we're going to do is allow them to talk about exactly how they found their particular opportunity that they have. And so what we're going to do first is I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. And then I'm going to pose a question to the panel, and they'll go through and they'll each answer the question. And then we'll open it up for Q&A for people to go in the chat and ask them questions. And then they'll give you further insight on their particular journey to their particular opportunity. So what we're going to do is they're going to provide you their name, their classification, their major, where they're from, and what particular opportunity that they're going to be pursuing. If they're a senior, obviously, what they're going to be pursuing after graduation. And if they're an underclassmen, they'll be talking about whether they're going on an internship or a research opportunity. So the order we'll go in is Alyssa, Chandler, and then Joy, and then Lamaria, and then Maya, and then Razine is the order we'll go in. And so, Alyssa, we will start with you with the introduction, and then I'll come back when everybody finishes and pose the question.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa Tasker. I am a junior economics major from Metro Detroit, Michigan, but I'm currently residing in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And this summer, I will be interning at Goldman Sachs in Chicago's Consumer Wealth Management Division.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chandler Nuttall. I am a sophomore English major from Washington, D.C., which is where I'm currently located right now. And this summer, I will be working with the political affairs and public affairs teams with the Emerson Collective.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Happy Saturday. My name is Joy. I'm a senior economics major from East Texas. Currently, I'm in Atlanta doing some senior things, but after graduation, I will be back in Atlanta living full-time as a financial analyst with BlackRock.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lamaria Smith. I am a senior economics major from Chicago. After graduation, I will be attending law school. Have not committed to one yet, but we'll talk more about it later in the session.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maya Blassingame. I'm a sophomore biology major on the pre-med track, and I currently reside in Baltimore, Maryland. This summer, I'll be participating in the UCLA Bruins and Genomics program, and I'll also be doing research at Spelman.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Raising Willoughby. I currently am a senior from Washington, D.C., where I currently reside. And I am a chemistry major, but I am switching over to graduate school, pursuing a PhD in engineering. I have not committed yet, but I'll talk about that later.
All these cliffhangers. All righty. So what we're going to do again is I'm going to transition to the panel. I'll call them by name. And actually, Raising, I'm going to start with you first. But what I'd like you to do is to take about 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, and let's talk about how you got to your decision. What are some things that you've been doing during the pandemic to get to that decision, just to give people an idea of how you've been navigating this virtual landscape. And really that's the question for everyone is how did you get to the decision you made today? And some of it we could have been things that happened before the pandemic. So I do recognize that. So it's okay to talk about that if that's the case. And so Raising, we're going to start with you and tell us about your journey.
Yes, so I can start off, I guess maybe a question that comes up is why I'm switching from chemistry to engineering. So originally I was actually on the dual degree engineering track. However, before kind of the pandemic, I was presented and like talked to my advisor and they were saying basically I could just leave early. So I decided to graduate in 3 years and pursue graduate school because ultimately that was kind of like the path and the dream that I wanted to do. Kind of navigating the realm of a graduate school virtually, um, or just the whole process, it was very different, as in you have to, like, the first wave is fellowships, and then the second wave is actually applying to things. But even before that, it's just gathering information about like which schools you want to go to, like who do you want to work with. I think kind of the pandemic helped in that sense, because everyone was more accessible. So sending an email and making a Zoom call was easier. But really navigating it was me reaching out to resources at Spelman. So Miss Latoya is dealing with like grad school stuff. And I like very much reached out to her and was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Please help me. And it was kind of like that natural sense of just getting like, okay, you should be doing this along the way. So yeah.
All right, great. And you got several offers, right? Or several grad schools that reached out to you?
Yes, so I guess I can go down the list. I only applied to 5 graduate schools. Currently, I have been accepted to all 5. Yale Chemical Engineering PhD, Columbia Environmental Engineering, WashU in St. Louis, Energy, Chemical and Environmental Engineering PhD, Berkeley Environmental Engineering PhD, and then Stanford Chemical Engineering PhD.
That is absolutely phenomenal. I think I heard 5 PhD acceptances. Remember a pandemic. Awesome. That is so awesome. And she made reference to, she said, Miss Latanya, that is Latanya O'Neill, by the way. She is our graduate school counselor that is in the Office of Career Planning and Development. So I do want you to know we do have someone to help our students with graduate school. So thank you, Raising, for sharing that. Alyssa, I'm going to pivot to you. We're going to go to the other end of the spectrum now. We're going to look at, let's do the internship side of things. So why don't you tell us how you began your journey and how you ended up at your ultimate choice?
Sure. So, with the pandemic, my initial internship opportunity got canceled, as a lot of people may have experienced. So I was kind of starting out the pandemic in a panic a little bit, and I just really had to channel the spirit of the Career Center and go after those opportunities. So I was applying for almost everything that I saw in Handshake and just trying to stay on top of my emails and just, look out for anything that might pop up that I might be interested in for this summer. And eventually, I saw in my emails a communication from Goldman Sachs inviting me to an HBCU chat. It wasn't like an interview, a real interview. It was more so like a mock interview, just allowing you to kind of practice, get to know the firm a little bit. And initially, I wasn't too sure about that opportunity just because it's a very intimidating firm, and I hadn't really done too much research about it at the time, but I just said, hey, like I need an opportunity this summer, and I'm gonna take this chance and see where it gets me. So went to the HBCU chat, and the lady that interviewed me was nice enough to give me her information, and I just made sure that I stayed in contact with her. That's another thing the Career Center teaches us, to make sure you network, build your network. And so just really took that opportunity to ask her any questions that I might have about the interview process, the internship application, the firm itself, and see if I really saw myself as a good fit there. And she was kind enough to just have interview prep sessions with me and just, walk me through different articles. I didn't know too much about the financial world or investment banking, so she really taught me almost everything I know to this point, and prepared me really well for the interview. So I went in and I interviewed, and I got the offer to join them in the Chicago Private Wealth Management office. So that's my opportunity for this summer.
That is awesome. And one of the things I want to make a note of that Alyssa mentioned was many times we get invitations from both graduate schools and companies to participate in these programs where they either go to the graduate school site, or they go to the company site, and they have professional development, or they have research at these particular institutions. And those are oftentimes looked at as feeder programs into other opportunities. So that's what you heard her describe. That's why she was saying, I didn't really even interview. I went to this event, and the event was actually a way of developing an applicant pool of candidates for the summer internship. And so that happens all the time. And so again, those opportunities are shared, and they are in handshake, and professors know about them sometimes and that kind of thing. So again, just making that point about how students actually find things sometimes. Sometimes it's just putting yourself out there and doing that. Okay, I'm gonna, since we've heard about a full-time graduate school offer the last time, I'm gonna now pivot to Joy, who has a full-time offer for a full-time job after graduation. So Joy, why don't you tell us what you've been doing
Sure.
with that?
Yeah, of course. And I have to say thank you so much to the sponsor, Davita and Mr. Bell, and whoever else had a hand in putting this together. But so my story is one of preparation beforehand. Mr. Bell can tell you I was really active as a freshman in trying to find an opportunity. My entire goal for going to Spelman College was to get a job after Spelman College. So my sophomore year, I actually ended up at a firm wide for BlackRock, where I met someone, and similar to what Alyssa was saying, I networked at that firm wide, and he said, hey, like reach out anytime you need me. And people say that, but he said, I really mean it. And so I reached out. I was in Atlanta that summer, and he said, hey, like come up to the office. I want to show you around. So he did. We stayed in touch when it was time for me to apply for an internship for my junior year summer. I was actually able to get on the fast track to their internship process because I was in touch with him. And from that internship, from the internship process, I was accepted and offered an internship my junior summer, which was when the pandemic hit. So I was extremely nervous because everyone's internships were unfortunately getting canceled, full-time roles were getting canceled. But I kind of had an inclination that BlackRock would hold true to their offer. And I had that inclination because in the process of applying for several different roles that summer, I'd interviewed these companies as they interviewed me, right? So I was checking out kind of their history with other students. I was checking out what other students said about them. You can find on various forums what students say about companies and their internships and things like that, asking them about their work styles and how things go that way. And I'd always heard great things about BlackRock. And adding to my interview process and who I had networked with, I knew they were really community focused and people focused. So I said, they're probably going to keep their people first, which they did. So we had the internship. Because of the networking that we were able to do within the internship, with it being virtual, networking with several different folks, even outside of the Atlanta office, they featured me in their Instagram stories. So because we were in a pandemic, right, I was able to reach out to different people who were way more senior than I was, or who were in completely different offices or on the other side of the world, like in London. So it actually allowed me to kind of expand a little bit. And from there, I got a full-time offer in September and was kind of able to like wipe some sweat off and just kind of relax and enjoy senior year. But that's my story and how I was able to navigate finding a role and keeping my role and even excelling in that role throughout the pandemic.
That's awesome. Two things I'd like to highlight in what she said. And one is what we talk about at Spelman a lot is starting early. And particularly with Raising and Joy and possibly others, I know I've particularly known them since they were freshmen. I've seen them go on that journey and never say I'm just a freshman. There are opportunities, and those that are on the panel that know this will tell you there are opportunities. You don't have to let being a first year student feel like that's an inhibitor for you to have access to opportunity. And so I just want to underscore that. And in her story, because she started building her network early on, she was able to lean on that network later when she really needed to do that and to really fall back on that. So very, very, very important to underscore that. All righty, Miss Maya. We want to hear from you. You're doing some research, huh?
Yes.
Tell us
So
about that.
this summer I'll be doing I have two opportunities for this summer. So I'll be doing research through a virtual program at UCLA, which is a genomics genetics research program under a mentor. And then I'll also be doing research in person at Spelman under one of my current biology professor. And so for me, both of these programs I got through my professors and connections at Spelman. So just learning how to um, really brand yourself and let people know what you're interested in and what you want to do. And so I would always go to office hours and ask my professors if they had opportunities or if they knew anything that could help me get to what I was interested in. And so I always either connect me with someone if they didn't have an opportunity, or they would send me opportunities. And so I was able to get into these programs because of my professors. And so I'm currently conducting research at Spelman. And so my research mentor actually hooked me up with the opportunity at UCLA and got me into that program. And for me, this summer is really important just because before the pandemic, I was really just set on going to medical school. And I was like, I just want to be a doctor. That's it. And then the program I got into was canceled. And so I did a research program at Spelman that they sent out a few weeks before the summer had started. And that completely shifted what I wanted to do. And I was like, there's so much to do in research, and there's so many things that I can do in ways that I can still help contribute to the healthcare industry without being a doctor. And that completely changed what I wanted to do. And like Alyssa said, doing mock interviews was another way that I found out about opportunities. Spelman sent a lot of emails about a company called Genentech, which I had never heard of before coming to Spelman. And my freshman year, they actually flew us out to California to visit their company. And that's really where I started to learn more about research and learning about the potential of seeing myself in research. And I saw that was really important as a Black woman, being in STEM and being in research. That's something where I realized that's what I want to do. And that's really, really important. I keep saying it's really important just because the connections that I've made, and like Mr. Bell was saying, even though I'm just a sophomore, it's important, and just reaching out and getting those connections. And so I feel like Spelman has done a really amazing job in making sure that we're hearing about opportunities, that we're engaging in mock interviews, engaging in informational sessions, and just exploring what we want to do, and showing us the diversity that we don't have to take one track, or that it doesn't have to be necessarily a linear pathway, and that over these summers, you can also explore what you want to do. So that's why I'm really grateful I've gotten those opportunities for this summer, because I really was divided. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do just medicine or just research or a combination. And so I'm really grateful for these opportunities and the connections that I've been able to make at my time, and virtually and in person as well, that I've still been able to make these relationships with my professors by going to office hours or just emailing them about what I'm interested in and letting them know about what I want to do in the future.
That is awesome, awesome, awesome. See, sophomore, she's gone out there. She's leveraged the connections she's had with professors and the relationships. She used the relationship to leverage a relationship and expand her profile. And so that's just awesome, awesome, awesome. And if you just see me keep smiling up here, it's just, you know, my dream, you know, as I hear them talk about, these are the things we really try to, you know, communicate across Spelman about, you know, the different opportunities, the mock interviewing, you know, the info sessions. Again, you heard her talk about making the trip to Genentech, making that trip. So important, because this is just not about the education that's learned in the classroom. It's also what's learned outside of the classroom. And there's so much. Never let a major limit you. There's so much more you can do that you don't even know. And that's one of the beautiful things about Spelman, is that it allows them to have that stage and that access to learn so many different things. So it's awesome. So that's why I get excited. Lamaria, let's hear about grad school again. And then we're going to close it out with Chandler on our remarks. So let's go with Lamaria.
So yes, I knew that I always wanted to be a lawyer since probably in high school, because my high school had a pre-law program. And then I decided to attend Spelman and major in economics, just in case, you know, going to law school didn't really work out. So during my time at Spelman, I took advantage of opportunities for internships within like business and the financial markets. So for example, I interned at Boeing after my sophomore year. I interned at JP Morgan in the investment bank this past summer. And I also took advantage of opportunities like at DaVita to strengthen my leadership skills. So while I was doing all of the recruiting and taking advantage of like mock interviews and career fairs, I was also doing graduate program recruiting for law school. So for example, my freshman year, I was able to participate in a pre-law fellowship at Duke Law School. And going along with this theme of it's never too early to start, that program was actually meant for rising juniors. And I was a rising sophomore, and I just put myself out there and told them that I really wanted to go to law school. I needed that exposure and just like understanding what law school is all about. And so, yeah, I was doing a lot this past 4 years with law school and also recruiting for like full-time offers. I received a few full-time offers for a job placement, but ultimately I decided that law school was for me. And during the pandemic, I spent a lot of time studying for the law school admissions exam, writing different personal statements, statements of like interest for different law schools, and basically getting my application package together. Miss O'Neill definitely helped in that process. Like, she was so accessible, you know. We have this app called GroupMe where we like connect with students and faculty, and like I literally like group meet her and ask her questions. She was always there to answer promptly. So I really appreciated that support. And so, yeah, this past fall, I applied to a few different law schools. Some of my acceptances include UC Berkeley School of Law, Northwestern Pitzer School of Law, and then I'm waiting for a few other law schools to get back to me. And I haven't really made my decision yet, but I've definitely been using like the tools and experiences Spelman has provided me as far as like making sure a learning environment is supportive and making sure that I can like see myself thriving and continuing my growth there as like a Black woman, a change agent, a scholar in these different institutions. So I'm really excited. I don't know which school, but I'm definitely using everything I've learned over the past 4 years to make an informed decision.
Wow, that is awesome. Now, did you catch the part she's talking about Boeing and JP Morgan, but I still could go to law school. I still could apply. You see the diversity. That's so important at Spelman. And again, I just want to just keep reinforcing that you don't have to be a one-trick pony. You know, you could do all these different things. And so that's just great to hear that story. It's just so inspiring. I'm the one that's privileged to be here today. All righty. And Chandler, you're going to be going with a nonprofit, right? And so let's hear that. You've heard the whole spectrum today. So let's hear Chandler's story and what she's going to be doing with her particular opportunity.
Yes, I am going to be working with a nonprofit. And I like what you said about the March to March, because it was last March that I really began the process of preparing myself for my internship now and also my internship that I'll have next summer and the summer after that. Because when COVID first hit, I was a little bit discouraged because so many opportunities were being closed and shut down, but I didn't want to let that prevent me from thinking ahead. I'm a planner. I always have been. And so I used that space of like the world seemed like it was on pause to really be very intentional and very hardworking on refining my resume, refining my ability to write a cover letter. And I even created an Excel spreadsheet with, and I just did a lot of research finding internship opportunities that basically could last me throughout Spelman. I have a lot of opportunities on this spreadsheet and constantly adding to it and applying to opportunities off of it to make sure that I'm always aware of what I want to do and constantly exposing myself to different opportunities and making sure, because things do, like internships for the summer will open in the previous fall, like the fall of the previous year. And so I wanted to make sure that I was constantly ready and I had my materials ready so that when it opens, I can be one of the first people to apply. And so now coming to this year, using that spreadsheet that I created, constantly adding and applying to things off of that, using resources such as LinkedIn, even Handshake has been extremely helpful to me because with Handshake, like I have a profile and I've input certain types of criteria of what I'm into. So like I know I like nonprofit work. I know I like educational advocacy. I like the government sector. My aspirations are to be a chief of staff. That's what I want to do. And so Handshake has been really helpful, providing me a lot of opportunities. And so using all of the thinking and reflecting that I've been doing on crafting my resume, making sure that you're quantifying what you've done in your work experiences, really selling yourself as a candidate and as an applicant, I was able to apply for, it was actually the first application that I submitted in January, early January. And it was my first choice out of all of my internship opportunities this summer. And I actually did an interview for it last week. And the person I interviewed with is the deputy chief of staff for the organization. So we had a lot to talk about because I've done a lot of introspective work. Like I know what my strengths are. I know what I like. And so we were able to talk a lot about logistics and operations, which is something I like and something she likes. And I actually just accepted my offer this past Monday. So I'm very excited to be working with the Emerson Collective. Oh, and also some information in case, because I don't know if anyone knows what it is, but it's based in California and they have a Washington, D.C. office, and they use a lot of different methods like impact investing, philanthropy, and also like some lobbying and advocacy to promote like immigration law, education reform, criminal justice reform, and climate change law. So very much my alley, and so I'm very excited.
As you should be. That is awesome. Everybody wants to know more about that spreadsheet, I'm sure. But congratulations on getting that offer this week. That is absolutely awesome. And by the way, we are already at 12:46. So I told you guys we're gonna go by fast. So I'm gonna pause now because you've heard from our esteemed panel, and I'm going to ask if anyone have any questions that are watching the panel or watching the session. If you put it in the chat, I'll put the question out to the panel. And if we don't get any questions, I'll continue to ask questions. So I'm gonna give you an opportunity to do that if you would like, for anyone or on the panel or whoever to respond to a question. So our viewing audience, anyone?
Mr. Bell, I just
Yes.
had one more comment that I think the audience may benefit from hearing from.
Okay, let's
As
hear
you
it.
were talking about how well-rounded we all are and not being a one-trick pony, Lamaria and I are actually working on a startup as well. So there's definitely also room in your Spelman journey and career journey to still pursue entrepreneurship if that's something that a student is also interested in.
Yes, yes, I second Joy. We're really excited about this startup. This past fall, Spelman had its first blockchain fintech pitch competition. And so Joy and two other students at Spelman, we all got together and created this really cool idea, and we're really excited. So yeah.
That is awesome. And for those of you who may not know, that in the viewing audience, is that we just got a substantial donation from Bank of America for a brand new entrepreneurship initiative that we will be implementing in partnership with Morehouse. And so that's very exciting. And for more information, please go to the website. But we are excited about that's an area. Many students at Spelman have been interested in entrepreneurship forever. And now we actually are going to have some infrastructure to help support and cultivate that, those who have that desire as well. So I'm sure most of these people on the panel probably have other things they're doing too. But that's just great. And that's, again, just that being in this type of environment that fosters and motivates you to really be that person and expand yourself. So just wanted to say that. Let me check the chat. I don't think I saw any questions. And so if I don't think I see anything right now. And so what I will do then is I'm going to go back to the panel. Yes, this session is recorded. Someone asked, is it recorded? Yes, it is. So yes, it will be, and information will be sent out on distribution. So be on the lookout for that. So let me just pose to the panel, since I don't necessarily see a particular question. Other things that you would like to share that maybe you didn't share in your comments as advice that you would like to give to anyone who may be viewing this particular session, from anyone that you'd like to share. I'll put that out there. I'll leave it open.
I guess I'll go first. Really, I guess like my first initial thing, like coming to Spelman, I really didn't know what in the world. Like I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know. So definitely like just do anything. Like whatever sparks your interest, just go for it. You can, like, I have been like, my parents have been like, Ace Boom Coon, Mr. Bell, and been telling me go to Mr. Bell all the time. So like I've been on like trips to go to Bank of America. I don't have any interest in banking, but as a chemistry major, I was out at Bank of America learning about that. Or I took a trip to Silicon Valley and like learning all the tech stuff and tech companies. But like those networks have also just helped me to cultivate my network now. Because previously, before, like during the pandemic, I actually interned at ExxonMobil. So having those connections, like people from Bank of America knew people at ExxonMobil, and like vice versa with all these tech companies. So even though like you may not necessarily like be a fit for it, just like try it if you're interested, because you never know where it might lead you. Because that led me to like doing my internship after my freshman year, where I was kind of like in the situation as Lamaria, where like I was a rising sophomore, everyone else was a rising senior, and it was like a fast track program at Stanford for grad school in engineering. And those type of things. So definitely just like broaden your horizons and like if you are interested, apply, because you never know where it might lead you.
That is an excellent point. Excellent point. So just on that point, I just want to make a quick session and then I'll get back to the panel, quick point. But so a lot of companies that will come to Spelman will say, we look at all majors, and that's sort of what she's hinting at is you don't have to limit yourself because, you know, they have multiple needs in these organizations. So you don't, as a student, you don't have to feel like I have to just do one thing. Razine on the Bank of America trip, even though banking was not necessarily her first choice, she was in a group, I remember this, and they did an MBA level case study. And her group actually completed the case study faster than the case study when it was done with MBA actual MBA students. She was a freshman at the time. Her group won, and they finished it in record time. And the people that administered were just like floored. But just even that level of exposure, just being able to see that, you know, was just, or participate in something like that, because people really want to hire you for your thinking and your problem solving skills. That's really what they're after. And Spelman does a great job fundamentally of cultivating that. And so I just wanted to just sort of reinforce again, you don't have to stick. You have the ability, and because Spelman, going back to attracting all those opportunities, you have, every school doesn't have those access points to do that. That's one of the benefits I say of being at Spelman, is that you do have this drop down menu, this awesome drop down menu of all these different things you can do. Let me be quiet and let somebody else.
I think my one piece of advice is never allow this idea that you're too junior or too young to pursue an opportunity. I felt like during my time at Spelman, I was probably one of the youngest in most spaces that I entered. But I always had to keep in my mind that like I deserve to be there, and that you know, knowledge and wisdom doesn't always like come with age, and it really doesn't matter how young or like where you are in your college experience. And so the same thing with like applying to grad school or law school. Like, not sure if anyone on this call right now is planning to go to law school, and you're thinking maybe like you're not ready, you know, just go for it. If you feel like in your heart you want to be a lawyer, you want to pursue that opportunity, just go for it, and don't allow anyone or even your thoughts to get into your mind that you should like maybe not go because you're too young or anything like that.
Yeah, I'd like to just expand off of what Lamaria is saying. Being at Spelman, there are definitely a lot of, as you can see, like great women doing great things, pursuing great opportunities. If you are not in a space where you have like an internship from Goldman Sachs or from JP Morgan Chase, don't let that discourage you. My freshman and sophomore year, I'm a Bonner, so I actually had to complete community service during those first 2 summers. And so that kind of put me a little like behind, one can say, in especially the field in finance, whenever I was going and trying to find opportunities. But because of the work I was doing, like with career planning and development and seeking out those opportunities during the school year, and because I stayed focused on myself and not the opportunities other folks had going on, I was still able to come out of it with a full-time offer. So just making sure that you stay focused on your path and not getting too discouraged by looking around and seeing what other folks have going on.
Excellent point. We did have 2 questions pop up in the chat that I want to touch on in our last 4 minutes. So one is, other than looking on Handshake, what can my daughter, who is a freshman, do to get an internship this summer? One of the things I would recommend she does, so there's other internships that are not coming through Handshake that our office gets all the time. And so she should make an appointment with her career counselor in the career planning office. If she doesn't know how to do that, just email CPD, cat paw dog, CPD, at spelman.edu and say, I would like to make a career counseling appointment. And her counselor can literally sit down and let her know things we're just hearing about, things that probably she doesn't see on Handshake that she can apply to. And so we'd be happy to do that. And remember, you already heard Maya made the point, she was talking to her professors. And so, you know, people know information. The thing I would say is speak up. That's what you got to do. And so, but if you want to start, she can start with that career counselor. And then a similar question comes along with that. When do you suggest students start applying for internships? They said sophomore year. I'll say no, freshman year. Because there are internships for freshmen. Absolutely, they are. They don't always may not be as plentiful, but they do exist. And so you don't have to wait until the sophomore year to start applying. You can do it as a freshman. One of the things we do in the career planning office when the career fair comes is that we actually send a list to all the first year students, says this is everybody at the career fair that's looking for freshmen. Now, it may not necessarily always be an internship. It might be a site visit, as you've heard several people talk about. But I want to underscore something Chandler said earlier because it was very significant. Really, this process starts in the fall. We do most of our fairs. We do have fairs in the spring, but our larger fairs are in the fall. And that's the reason they're larger, is because that's when most people are looking. So when you look does matter. Because this is on a timeline. And so you want to do it in the fall, because what we're seeing is more and more people are identifying students in the fall as opposed to the spring. That doesn't mean it won't be anything in the spring, but that's when you want to focus your time. You'll have access to a lot more. And one of the reasons that is that way is because if my competitor is starting to recruit at Spelman in the fall and I'm not there, with the company or graduate school thinks is they're going to get all the good students before I do. So I've got to start doing it too. So that's what drives that process. It's a supply and demand. So that's when you want to start applying there. We have probably time for one more comment from our panel, and then I'll close the session out. So any last comment that anyone wants to make from the panel, as we got about 1 minute.
I wanted to quickly make a comment in regards to the question about a tool for finding internships outside of Handshake. And this is probably, like, you probably know about it, but it can be very underrated, the use of LinkedIn, and just making sure that your profile is as cohesive as possible, even posting about if you're doing a community service opportunity, or if you attended a cool virtual diversity summit. Posting about those things and making sure that your profile is up to date is really helpful, because recruiters are on LinkedIn and they're absolutely looking. And I can attest to that. I had a recruiter reach out to me about a marketing tech internship, and I'm currently interning there and have been since August. And it's been one of the most amazing experiences ever. So just making sure that you're utilizing LinkedIn and really communicating what your interests are. And just staying up to date with that.
Okay, Jobwell, Joy mentioned that's another job site. So there's more than one job. So actually on Handshake is what you ought to know. If you look at resources, all these websites are there. Jobwell's there. There's a lot of different other websites that are there. So look on the resources in Handshake. We actually promote other sites in Handshake. So they're on the resources tab. So look in there and you'll be like, oh my God, because there's a ton of them in there. And some of them are actually aligned by discipline. So be sure to look there as well. Okay. All right. We are at 1 o'clock. I told you guys it was going to go by fast.
Harold, Miss Harold.
Yes.
Hey, this is Miss Crook. I just wanted to say a couple of words before we get off as well.
Yes. Go ahead.
So at this time, the Office of Student Life and Engagement would like to thank Mr. Harold Bell, Susan Beckett Mitchell, Katie Huber from DaVita, and for your sponsorship, the students that participated, as well as the family and friends who took the time to join this information session today. So thank you to you all.
And thank you all for the opportunity to do this. And on behalf of Career Planning and Development and all the students that are on the panel today, Thank you so much. Thank you, students, for being the awesome people that you just walk around just being because you're just awesome. Thank you so much and have a great day.